My name's Sasha. I live in Bvlbancha, which lots of folks know of as New Orleans, Louisiana. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the convergence coordinator for PowerShift Network. And so I really love plants. I am an indigenous folk herbalist. I come from the Osage, Lakota, and Muskogee peoples. And I'm just really excited to talk about some of the plants that you might see throughout Bvlbancha and the surrounding region. If for anybody who's planning on coming to the convergence in April of 2023, that's going to be held here in Bvlbancha. But also you might see a lot of these plants in your hometowns. Like some of these plants are all over the country and all over the world. And I'd love to give Jen and May a second to introduce themselves.
Stongo, everyone. My name is Jenna May. Just a quick thing, Sasha. I have no video over here. However, I will keep talking. I use she and they pronouns. I also live here in Bvlbancha. I am a part of the Bvlbancha Collective, as well as a part of the Echinacea network of indigenous gardeners in the Gulf South. I am of Eastern Siouan, Muskogee, and Cherokee descent, and I am a community herbalist, and just completed a community herbalism program last year at the Terra Silva School of Botanical Medicine.
Thanks so much. Jenna May, I made you a co-host, so maybe that'll get your video working. Otherwise, we might be, yes! Yay! I love your lipstick and earrings. You look great. Awesome. Okay. So we're both super plant nerds, so this is going to be a lot of fun, and please feel free to put things in the Q&A if y'all have any comments or questions. And let me start the where'd you go, buddy? There you go. Let me show my screen, and my screen just went blank for some reason. I do not know what's happening with this machine. I think it's got a ghost in it. Let's see. And is this the whole screen, or is this just the
It looks like we can definitely see the screen, but then you have all the tabs up top that are open as well.
Not you, but one of you is the right one. You? Come on, buddy. Work with me. Maybe?
And I'm looking in the Q&A, and Audrey, Mado, you know, with these tech difficulties on Zoom, don't always feel amazing, but you know, at least we got our beadwork and some fun colors going on to get us through.
Okay. I'm gonna, I can't, is it working? You know what, y'all might just have to see all of my tabs. I don't know why this thing is not cooperating with me. Okay. This is, I felt nervous about what I was gonna say before, but compared to my computer not wanting to cooperate, nothing that I say is gonna be silly or weird. So there, you know what? Okay.
Yeah, we're getting some feedback about don't worry about the tabs.
Okay.
let's just roll.
All right. So I also can't see anything, so we're gonna move that. We introduced ourselves already. We're gonna journey into some of the plant medicines here in Bvlbancha and in the Gulf South. And so a quick introduction, a little bit more of who we kind of are together, some of the communities of which we're in together. We're part of the Bvlbancha collective. We're part of the Echinacea collective of gardeners and Indigenous craft workers. We're here for land back and creating community. We have a broad network of people throughout the Gulf South and Turtle Island. We're a radical Indigenous, mutual aid, medicine, traditional craft, and activist collective. We are queer, straight, trans, cis. We have various histories of migrations and homecomings from various Indigenous nations and communities with a connection of ancestry, all of us, to the nations of the southeast of Turtle Island. And we are accountable to a rhizomatic network of relationality, expanding from our own Indigenous ceremonial networks here in the southeast to all over Turtle Island, to queer and trans liberatory networks, to urban plant, land, food, and sustainability justice projects and DreamWorks, to Black liberation, and to our ancestors and non-human nations. We dream up future worlds through our ancestors' eyes, and we are stronger together, we are better together, and we learn to be better by doing the work together. And here we are again, just in case y'all needed a refresher from 30 seconds ago. And before we get into the plants and our plant relationships and some of the medicine and snacks and wonderful gifts that they have, I do think taking some time to acknowledge the place where we are calling from, the place where I hope some of you will be coming to visit and collectively build and dream with us at the Convergence. This is art by our lovely comrade and friend Monique Verdun, who is of the United Homa Nation and is brilliant. Jenna May, do you feel down to read this? Or?
Yeah, I can do it. Let me minimize my screen over here. The area where we are based in is known by most people as New Orleans, but there is nothing new about it. Prior to European incursion, this was a port for trade across the Americas, much as it is today. Before the French market, we had our own markets where goods traveled intracontinentally as part of complex trade routes. Before the French Quarter, we were a bustling area with civilizations, nations, and peoples exchanging languages, goods, and cultures. And before Bienville, this place already had names. The Chata call it Bvlbancha, the place of many or foreign tongues. But there were more than just Chata here. We had the Oklapisa, Achapatula, Achafakti, Chawasha, Bayukokla, the Natchez, Chitimacha, and many more. In the wider area, we also had the Tunica, Biloxi, Atakapa Ishak, Muskogee, Caddo, Homa, and more. These diverse people converged upon the city where goods, words, ideas, and civilizations intermingled like the waters of the Mississippi River across Turtle Island and into the Gulf of Mexico, forming the multi-dimensional richness that is our home.
And so whenever we speak of things like land acknowledgements, it comes up in our community quite a bit. It comes up in Indigenous communities quite a bit. They are important, like addressing and acknowledging land and history is important, and it's also not enough. It's often, you know, like empty words from institutions. And so thinking on that, a land acknowledgement, I'm sorry, my screen is half covered. There we go. Lest we get too comfortable in giving lip service to stolen land, let us state now. A land acknowledgement simply acknowledges that a colonial power claims, uses, and extracts from land that is not theirs by heritage or stewardship. As soon as the acknowledgement is over, most folks pat themselves on the back and continue to benefit from her pain. You must do better. A land acknowledgement must truly acknowledge and commit to the land. The land is central to our identities as Indigenous people, and so we take this time to center her, to feel what she is saying to us, her pains, her desires, her offers to nourish us. We enter into a solemn agreement with her and each other and learn and live as family in respect and community. The land includes all waters, all lives, all rock and leaf and microscopic and winged and many-legged nations, all who are unjustly subjected to modern society's human-centric whims. We must keep them, their rights, and their dignities in mind.
Giving a land acknowledgement is a statement of intent to be in community with the land and Indigenous peoples. In doing so, you are entering into ceremony. Ceremony is commitment. Being in community with Indigenous peoples and working towards decolonizing our relations with one another and getting free is going to require dismantling all systems of injustice on this land, including capitalism, racism, homophobia, and transphobia. The list sometimes feels endless and exhausting. All of these grow from the poisoned root of colonialism. And if we have any hope of seeing freedom, we've got to get our hands in the dirt and start digging.
So if you were in Bvlbvncha today, who might you meet? And first on the list right now, like ostentatious, delicious, and beautiful, we have elder, so elderberry and elderflower. And I love for you to start us off, Jenna May. I know you love, I love this plant friend.
I do love elderberry and elderflower. These plant friends are interesting. Usually they're ripe, the fruit is ripening right now, but on most shrubs and trees, you'll see flowers still forming. And then when the berries are unripe, they're green, along with ripe ones all together. And then you will also see a myriad number of insect critters swarming all over them and living in the trees and on the berries. So it's quite an adventure harvesting them. And they're pretty weedy and abundant here in Bvlbvncha. You'll see highways lined with them. And they grow in, in here in Bvlbvncha, we have a number, especially in my neighborhood, a number of abandoned lots and since Hurricane Katrina, but very specifically intentional disinvestment from neighborhoods. And so what's happening over the course of 17 years in these lots is that they are rewilding. And elderberry is kind of a key species that aids in that rewilding, because the birds will eat the berries and scatter them, and then underneath the elderberry is like a small tree or shrub, and then that'll provide some shade for some other plants to grow up underneath them. So that's just a little bit about how they grow and how they're situated here in Bvlbvncha. Their medicine, however, is my favorite thing to talk about. I do want to, if folks in the Q&A, if at any time that I'm talking, if there's a term that you don't understand, if there's anything specific about any of the plant friends that we're talking about that you would like to know about, please feel free to shoot us some questions in the Q&A, and we'll be monitoring for that, and we'll try to answer them in real time. So we'll start with elderflower first. They are delicate and they smell heavenly. And the elderflower is very popular in cordials and sweet medicines. They are, let me think. They are okay, I'm going to use an herbalism jargon word right now, a relaxing diaphoretic. So what that means is a diaphoretic means induces sweat, and a relaxing diaphoretic will kind of ease tension so that sweat can happen. And when that is important is in the immune response called fevers. Sometimes if you have a fever and you feel a lot of tension and aches and pains in your body, and your body has not produced a sweat yet, elderflower is a great one to turn to, because they'll kind of relax that tension so that you are able to kind of sweat it out. And for anyone that doesn't know or is or has heard something entirely different throughout their lives, in my tradition of herbalism, we generally, unless there are unless there's very specific reasons not to, we do not suppress a fever. Fever is our body's natural immune response. And when we go into fever, we actually produce more white blood cells to help scavenge any sort of bacteria or anything swimming around our bodies that's not supposed to be there. Of course, fevers should always be managed, and we don't want them to get them too high. And if anyone it has any sort of immunocompromising conditions, that general idea about not suppressing a fever may be different for you. So that is elderflower. Sasha, do you have anything more to say about elderflower before we move on to the berries?
Only that, like, I feel like there's oftentimes when you think of our plant friends will often come to us during the seasons and times where we need them. And elder, like you mentioned earlier, is kind of interesting that at least in our bioregion, elder is a riot of different stages of growth. But I do find that like elder early in the season for me, I've noticed like the kind of spring allergy inflammation feeling. Elderflower is really beautiful for that. And it's covered in natural yeast, so you can make fermented soda with it if you're willing to like risk playing with wild yeast, which I love making weird soda. So elderflower is great for that if you've got them. And if you have an elder shrub around, they get loaded, though when you're thinking about harvesting for food or medicine, if you harvest all of the flowers, you will get no berries, right? So sort of measuring out, like maybe you don't want to take all of them if you also plan to make something with elderberry later.
This reminds me, I usually don't harvest elderflower. It's just I just go for the berries later in the season. However, I have heard that you can take a pan and take the cluster of elderflowers and shake them, and the petals will fall off, and leaving the berry to still form. I haven't tried that myself yet, but I have high hopes for this. And yes, elderflower also is great for hot inflammation, hot allergies. Elderflower can also can be soothing to the skin as well, especially if there's like anything hot or inflamed going on. So now elderberries. Elderberries are they're a food first and foremost. Very popular elderberry jam, elderberry syrup, elderberry mead, and elderberry wine. I think it's okay to eat them fresh a little bit at a time, but there's a caution there with the fresh berries. They are a laxative, and so if you eat too many, you may have to go pretty quickly. But generally we cook them, and then we cook them for a while. So when I make elderberry syrup, I'll decoct it. I'll decoct the fresh or dried berries anywhere between 25 to 45 minutes before straining. And so yeah, food first, food for us and food for the birds. And that's really important because we're not the only ones who benefit from this magical plant friend. The little pinkish red stems, you want to pick the berries completely clean off of them. You don't want to eat the stems. And for the rest of the plant, the leaves can be used topically or externally, but you don't want to ingest them internally. So as far as the medicine of elderberries go, they are also a relaxing diaphoretic. But they are also an immune stimulant. So what that means is that they're going to help our immune systems launch a response. And they also have an affinity for the lungs. So they are a really great plant friend to lean on for viral respiratory infections, as well as bacterial infections of the lungs, but I wouldn't only use elderberry for that. Other indications for elderberry, they have an affinity for the lungs, but they can also be utilized. Oh, okay, I have decoction. Okay, let me go back. So when you make tea and you steep a tea bag or you pour hot water over the herbs and let it sit for 10 minutes, that's an infusion. When you decoct something, you boil the plant material in water for a certain amount of time. So they're not just infusing, they're actually like boiling and cooking up. And that's what decoction means. And generally you would decoct roots, barks, and seeds. Any kind of tough material, you're going to want to boil that for a while to be able to extract the medicine out. And I'm making sure to check the Q&A. Okay, and so I've always been taught with elderberry. Elderberry is kind of cooling and moist. And so to make a balanced medicine or food, I've always been taught to add warming spices to elderberry, whether that is your jam, your syrup, or, you know, I tincture elderberry. And tincturing means that plants extracted in alcohol. And so warming spices that go great with elderberry, ginger is probably my favorite. Ginger and cinnamon. Star anise is another good one. Some people add a little orange peel to their jam. So any kind of herbs that are hotter or warmer in character and will help drive the medicine all over the body. That's what stimulating, warming herbs and spices do. Sasha, is there anything you want to add? Oh, I have a question here too. Hi, does the cooking process reduce the amount of vitamin C in elderberries? Yes, but it doesn't negate the vitamin C in them. That is why elderberry is often prepared as a jam or, you know, wine or mead, so that you can can it and put it up. And so all of these wonderful fruits that we can gather in the spring and summer months will be, you know, needed vitamins in the wintertime when these things in other places where these things aren't growing. Here in Bvlbvncha, things grow all year. But that is the wisdom behind making elderberry jam. So yes, the cooking does reduce some of the vitamin C, but it doesn't negate it entirely.
I've also heard that this would be kind of difficult if you're like hanging out in your yard, getting your own elder. But dried elderberries drying is a form of cooking, at least in at least this instance, that if you dry them, you probably don't need to boil them as long to make them, you know, not raw and safe to eat. The other thing I was thinking of is, and I think it might have been you who told me this, was the freezer trick.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would always get my hands so messy, and it's like, oh, if you put them in the freezer for a little while, you can kind of just rattle them off the stems, the elderberries off of the stems, though you will still get messy. Like, be prepared to be like, you know, wine colored fingertips when you're prepping elderberry medicine and food. It definitely stains you. And there's no getting away from the mess, but it does make it a little easier. There have been afternoons at Jenna May's porch outside area just with like 7 different people and forks cleaning elderberries, because it is a labor of love. It absolutely is. It's worth it, but it is a labor of love. And when thinking about some flavor profiles, I feel like sometimes the flavor profiles that you would put in like a golden milk, like if you already have like those like golden milk latte powders, like adding that to elderberry is super tasty. And some of that like warming, those like delicious warming spices, the blend is already kind of done for you.
Another elderberry preparation that I forgot to mention is elderberries have tons of vitamins and minerals in them. And so they can also be extracted with vinegar. We generally use apple cider vinegar, and vinegar helps pull the minerals, specifically the mineral content, out of plants. And so you can make a herbal vinegar or an oxymel. An oxymel is apple cider vinegar and honey. And both of those are used to extract the medicine out of the plants. And you can cook that vinegar to speed up that process, or you can do the traditional folk method of letting the apple cider vinegar or apple cider and vinegar and honey sit, or letting the elderberry sit in there for it takes about 6 weeks to extract the medicine with vinegar.
It's also like herbal vinegars as your salad dressing base is next level, like health goals. So I love vinegar medicine. And the next friends we're going to introduce y'all to, who you might see around here, would be, I love them both. I also love how ostentatiously colored they are. It's why I wanted to put them together, is Goldenrod and Beautyberry.
Ooh, where do we start? Okay, yeah, so these are, Goldenrod is going to come up, the flowering, a little later, like next month usually, but I've watched them, I've watched them flower in April. Sometimes, generally you can count on September. And then Beautyberry, they are fruiting these like jewel tone, lovely, abundant fruits right now. Yeah. So goldenrod grows very tall, 7-8 feet, and the tops, the flowers form at the top, and they're like this bright sun color. And I really love them because they're flowering in most places. Bvlbvncha is different. We have summer until like Halloween, basically. But the seasons are starting to shift. And like when I think of goldenrod, I think of like holding the last bit of summer's warmth in those beautiful flower heads. Yeah. And they make they're a really great tea. Just like for a casual sipping tea, but they are also have a ton of medicinal indications. So the leaves are kind of resiny and pine tasting like, and the flowers are a little more floral. And if you put a leaf in your mouth, you'll taste that pine taste, but then maybe the inside of your mouth will start puckering. And what that puckering is an indication of is that this plant friend is astringent. And what that means is that it kind of pulls tissues in the body together, especially if they're lax and leaky. And so goldenrod has affinity for the lungs, the sinuses, the mucous membranes, but pretty specifically mucous membranes in the urinary tract system, and also the kidneys. And so goldenrod is a great friend to turn to when one is experiencing like burning in their pee, UTIs, kind of dull aching kidneys, or like a backache in the back, especially if there's something going on with the urine too. Goldenrod is really great for hay fever and seasonal allergies. So what they're like when you think about hay fever, it's like everything is like hot and leaky. And so goldenrod and a few other plant friends we'll talk about kind of help tighten up the mucous membranes and the sinuses, so that they're not so leaky anymore. And that can help relieve some like postnasal drip, or just like the itchy hotness of seasonal allergies. Yeah, Sasha, do you
Yeah,
wanna?
I love goldenrod. It's so I feel like goldenrod can like I like Jenna May had mentioned, like carrying the warmth of summer into the season change. I found that like goldenrod tea for me can feel very much like bringing that summer, that warmth of the summer back. Though if you want to harvest goldenrod for tea and you're looking for like visual beauty and like thinking about it as like this bright beautiful yellow that I can like steep, you want to harvest it a little or like kind of earlier. You still want it to be like yellow and blooming, but it's kind of amazing. Like you will harvest the plant friend, it will be dry and it will still turn into these strange puffs. So if you harvest it a little earlier, if you're wanting to save it for tea, harvesting it when it's like not quite at the very end of its bloom is really helpful. Like I will also happily make tea out of the little puff balls, but if you're looking for that like splash of color, especially if like color is something that really helps you connect to warmth in the cold, then I would maybe harvest the goldenrod a little earlier. And I love this plant friend for my arthritis. Jenna May and I made a formulation, and Jenna May added some like I had been already using goldenrod, and Jenna May had been like, you should use these other plant friends with it. And it, when I tell you it, I have terrible arthritis in my left hand and it works great. Goldenrod, don't sleep on our beautiful yellow friend here.
Also, goldenrod is really great for like making decorative wreaths as well. That yellow color is just really lovely in like a dried floral arrangement. Again, you want to harvest early if you want to utilize them for that. And then goldenrod for arthritis through topical use. Yes. So generally how I use goldenrod for topical use is either infusing it into an oil and rubbing the oil into the skin, or making it, adding beeswax and making a salve. You can also use goldenrod as a liniment. And to make a liniment, you are going to infuse your plant material in rubbing alcohol and isopropyl alcohol, which cannot be ingested. And if anyone is going to do this, I highly recommend like danger warning labels on your homemade liniment to be sure that anyone in your household knows that this is not to ingest. Liniments are great to if you know some folks' skin are sensitive, and so the rubbing alcohol is not going to be the best idea. But for folks whose skin can tolerate it, a liniment, a medicinal liniment added on the skin will it's pretty fast acting, because the medicine in the rubbing alcohol will absorb through the skin really quickly. So that's a topical recommendation there. Yeah. And I'm trying to think of other things. Oh, goldenrod can be used for smoke medicine as well. Again, you want to harvest early. The seed heads turn into this white fluff, and that's not going to be good for burning at all. So you want to harvest early. I would say even harvest to dry right as the flower buds are forming and no later for that.
Also, like, I'm blanking on the amount of them now, but there are many different varietals of goldenrod that grow here on Turtle Island, and they have like very analogous medicinal properties, though they do have different flavors. And I can't recall the name of it right now, but there is one particular varietal that is the least piney. If you were looking for, like, I personally like the flavor of like piney goldenrod, but it can be pretty intense. And there is one, I think it's like sweet goldenrod, that is a little less piney than the others, that does grow here in Bvlbvncha. But I mean, I've talked to botanists and they're like, yeah, I mean, good luck. Like, it's an adventure trying to identify all of them, but they're all a, you know, big happy family of goldenrods. And they will also like will grow together too. So you might have like sweet goldenrod and like what is one of the other goldenrods like right next to it. So it is a fun adventure to try to figure it out.
I do want to just mention, Sasha and I were being very ambitious this evening, and we're like, we're going to do 13 plants of Bvlbvncha to represent the 13 moons in the lunar year. And we are already at 6:13. So we can talk about plants for hours, and but we may not get to all of our 13 plants, or we may just have to give some sound bites about them. So beautyberry is a lovely shrub that grows down here, and they're just really great to plant in your landscape because they have these gorgeous berries that pop up in late summer. And the berries are edible. They're not super flavorful on their own. They need a little extra help from other plant friends, like some lemon rind and lemon juice. With them, I usually make a jam with beautyberry jam. That's my fave, and they are great for critters in your landscape and pollinators as well. Everyone likes a berry. And then the cool thing, the added perk of beautyberry is that the leaves have natural bug repellent properties in them. And so you can just harvest a leaf and rub it on your skin, and it'll keep some, maybe not all, mosquitoes away. But it's a good plant to know, like when you're out foraging maybe, and you're getting bit up by bugs, find some beautyberry leaves and rub them on you, if no allergies exist. Of course, everything that we're talking about tonight, I just want to have the caveat here that we're not giving medical advice, and we definitely encourage folks to build relationships with plants. And to find out if you have an allergy, a quick way to do that is rub like a little bit of the fresh plant on the inside of your wrist, or you can even do this with like a tincture, an alcohol extract, put like a drop or two on your wrist, wait 15 to 20 minutes and see if any redness or swelling or any reaction occurs. Especially for goldenrod is in the Asteraceae family, and allergies exist in the Asteraceae family. And then some people are allergic to all Asteraceae and some only some. So knowing that for yourself is is a part of the relationship you have with the plants, and it's also a part of the medicine to know if it's not for you. So
I was thinking just now of for any of these plant, like if you have like a known allergy to like any sort of certain plant family, like definitely for sure like take a look at the family the plant is in, but also understand that like if this is a new plant friend for you and you've never encountered them, it might be good if you are known to have allergies of any kind to just do a little test to make sure. Gets like a little introduction. And I love this plant friend too, yellow dock. I wanted to give a lot of space for this plant because of like all of the different visual cues and the ways that we use this beautiful plant friend.
yeah, so the yellow dock, they are what's the word, biennial? That's the plant term I'm thinking of. So they have 2 years of growth. The first year they will put out these basal rosettes, and then the second year the stalk will grow from it with all of these.
Go ahead. Basal rosettes, do you mean this like this green down here? The basal rosette is like this base of like green leafy beautifulness, and second year is the stalk, right?
Right. And yeah, and then that clump in the first year will stay low to the ground. Yeah, it'll stay low to the ground. It really is like a base. And then the second year you'll get this growth up top. And there's lots that so the leaves can be used medicinally and as a poultice, especially for skin irritations. Yellow dock leaves are really great. And generally I use the roots. The roots are what I make medicine with. And so yellow dock is not native to here, and they can be kind of weedy. You generally harvest the roots after this big stalk of seeds has turned like this bright rusty red, and then you can harvest the roots. But really you can harvest them anytime, especially if you're going to pull them out anyway, because they're growing in a place where you don't want them to be. Go ahead and harvest the roots along with it. And it's called yellow dock because these roots are beautifully yellow. Yeah. So medicinal virtues of yellow dock. Where do I start? Where do I end? Okay, so yellow dock has affinity for the GI system and the liver. They can also help the body absorb iron, and so they are a traditional remedy if that is something that they're a traditional remedy to help with anemia. There's other things that help with anemia as well. They're chock full of vitamins and minerals. So situations in the GI that they could be helpful for, like acid reflux issues, kind of any leakage going on in the GI system. They're also so in the liver, they're a liver stimulant, and so what they will do is they will signal to the liver to start producing bile, which helps digest our food. I'm trying to think of generally I make yellow dock syrup with them, and that is actually I think another member of our collective makes yellow dock syrup a lot more than I do, and they boil the roots and the leaves together, and then you combine that with what's the name I'm looking for?
Are you talking like the yellow
syrup?
Molasses and honey.
Molasses, yeah. And then that adds more vitamins and minerals and kind of a little bit of a salty flavor to the syrup. And yeah, again, the affinity for yellow dock. Oh, yellow dock can also skin eruptions, especially if one is experiencing skin problems and then also is having GI complaints at the same time, or there is I'm trying not to use jargon. I was about to say liver depression, but I'm like, who knows what that means? If the liver is not working up to peak quality along with GI stuff, yellow dock can be indicated, and yellow dock is cooling, so it's really great for hot conditions. We have a hand raised here.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar, like the webinar format as opposed to the normal format. Did you hit allow to talk? That should allow them to talk.
I'm not seeing that on my end.
I did see it and then it went away.
Okay,
I'm gonna try for like Layla.
Oh, allow to talk. Okay.
I'm gonna hit allow to talk. If you have a question, are you okay with that? Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. That was a malfunction of my own phone. I was funny time. But I appreciate
the machines.
And this
well,
has
if
been
you have a question, feel free to raise your hand again or put it in the chat.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay.
And then for yellow dock, a season that yellow dock is really great is for like right after winter, when maybe in other areas, maybe we've been inside more and not as active, and we kind of just feel sluggish and want like a pep in our step and to clear stuff out. Yellow dock is a great one to turn to, especially a yellow dock syrup, which you can kind of take daily, just to get things moving, to get all of our systems moving and cleared out. Yellow dock is great, and it combines well with some other ones that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, yellow dock, other than like eating the young leaves of yellow dock, if you want to eat that, like if you want to forage and eat them in like a green salad or like saute them, better off really like sauteing them with your other greens. The greens are much better young. But I definitely like when I use yellow dock medicine, it is a lot often for that like seasonal change, liver support, blood building kind of thing. I've also felt when there is hard things to process, that yellow dock is a good friend to like help me process hard feelings, particularly like old anger. Yellow dock is a good friend for that, I've found. How about mulberry? I love mulberry.
So mulberry, let me think. When are they coming up?
I feel
March
like
and April.
Yeah, I feel like mulberry starts at like the early spring, right? And then, but then you'll get leaves like starting to flourish a little earlier.
Yeah, mostly I've got a ton of mulberry trees in this plot of land I tend next door, and I just wait for the berries to ripen. Mulberry is medicinal in other ways, especially the bark has affinity with the respiratory system and congestion, but mostly I just like the fruit. I like eating them right off the tree. I always mean to make jam with them, but they don't even last that long. I just eat through the bowl.
I feel I have a lot of love for mulberry. mulberry kind of gets the side eye from a lot of people sometimes because the trees grow very fast. They can be very sprawling. You get an overabundance of fruit on somebody's sidewalk and someone's mad about their sidewalk. That's ridiculous. Mulberries are great. But I also love that there are mulberries in multiple parts of the world, and Turtle Island has a native mulberry. There are also introduced mulberries, but the mulberries will also hybridize and select for their environment. And I think there's something really beautiful about like the resilience of that tree. And they're delicious. Another one though, like when you mess with it, your hands will turn purple. So be prepared.
And then we have a hand raised here.
Let me see. Let me see if I can. Where'd it go? Okay. Hi.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just want to say, I think the chat box is disabled because I was just squeal about mulberries and how awesome they are. And I was picking them recently in our neighborhood around the summertime.
I love that. Oh, the Q&A box is definitely enabled. I don't know how the chat box got disabled if that happened. I'm sorry, but I'm glad that you also mulberries.
Yeah, I don't think that we're working, like we see a chat box on our end, but I don't think y'all see it on your end. But you're welcome to put any questions or comments in the Q&A.
I don't know if you can do that out. Oh, I see it. Okay. There's a Q&A box. Got it. All right. Thank you.
All right.
So love to talk about wax myrtle. Wax myrtle is a plant friend for me that I've known of, but didn't have a super close relationship or knew that much about until we started being in community and helping tend one of our beloved elders, Miss Tammy Greer's medicine garden up in Hattiesburg. But I'd love to hear you, Jenna, talk about our friend wax myrtle.
Yeah, so wax myrtle, it's also called bayberry, or the species name is Myrica. And then there's different species of Myricas. So you can look and see if one grows in your area, and they generally all have really similar properties and medicinal constituents. So the leaves can be used for flavoring the same way you would use a bay leaf. Whereas maybe you might, for a recipe, you might throw 1 bay leaf in, you would do 2 to 3 of the wax myrtle leaves with similar results to bay leaves. These berries here have a wax on them that you can melt down to use for candle wax as well. So those are just some of the uses of wax myrtle. The Myrica species. For medicine, I use the root bark, and wax myrtles are small shrubs, but they will grow laterally and send up new shoots from their root systems. And so in order to harvest the root bark for medicine without harming the tree, you want to harvest those new growth shoots, especially if you don't want them growing in the area, because they'll send up a lot of them. So you can harvest a lot of medicine while tending to a garden area or a landscaped area and helping out that area. And the root bark, remember when I was talking about goldenrod, I talked about that the term astringent, where it, the ability to tighten up tissues when they're leaky. So the root bark of wax myrtle also does that and has affinity for the sinuses and the affinity for the sinuses as well as the GI system. So they're another great one to turn to if there's any sort of like hot inflammation in the stomach or in the esophagus. Some, reflux issues. Bayberry will kind of tighten those tissues up to so that leakage doesn't occur. They're also a great one for seasonal allergies. the first signs of colds or any sort of upper respiratory congestion, because they're gonna tighten up the mucous membranes in the sinuses. And I'm trying to think of, I know they have other indications, but those are just to name a few.
Yeah, they definitely are very prolific. They grow very prolific runners. I do like my first incident of working with wax myrtle like in an intimate like figuring out how they grow was when Miss Tammy was like had asked us to come and help her with her medicine garden. And when I tell you, like, it would like there was wax myrtle had just like made themselves a presence enough to where all of us took boxes of medicine home, and it was still like a lot of wax myrtle. They are very prolific growers. They're very generous. And I love using wax myrtle with as a cooking seasoning, like in that bay, and like in the same way as bay, but as opposed to like just thinking of like pasta sauces and like stews, I like lining the bottom of a pot with wax myrtle and like putting a roast on top of it. Like just there's something, it's slightly spicier than bay. It's very tasty. If you have a wax myrtle near you, I highly recommend snacking on some wax myrtle, and it smells divine. Like you don't need potpourri, just get some dried wax myrtle. It's a very divine smell. Our next friends, we're going to think of, for us, it's very early spring. And our like Bvlbvncha has a strange growing season, but our next friends, Chickweed and Cleavers. In a lot of places I feel in the world, like they kind of indicate the spring. And they're both great medicine.
Yes, they are, and food too. I make chickweed and cleavers pesto in the early spring. Like here, they're probably done by March. I am picking chickweed and cleavers in like sometimes January, February, and March. You can make that, you can use them. Oh, I have a question here. So a lot of things that tighten up sinuses also dry up human milk. Do you know if the wax myrtle is also one that will dry up milk? Should probably be avoided if chest feeding, like it's not dangerous to child, just isn't conducive. Oh, I lost the rest of the question.
Yeah, well, sorry, the other rest of the question was isn't conducive to milk production. So like not dangerous to the child, but like does wax myrtle inhibit milk production in chest feeding people?
That I would have to look up my notes again, because I can't remember off the top of my head. They are that's a good question, and once we get into chickweed and cleavers for a little bit, I can look that up and answer that for you.
And I'm also I feel like it depends on which part of the medicine. Like I imagine the bark would be much more likely to inhibit milk production than those leaves.
But okay, so chickweed and cleavers can be used as food, a spring greens and spring food. Chickweed is a little more edible fresh than cleavers are. Cleavers have like a fuzziness to them that is not pleasant to eat raw. They won't hurt you, but it'll feel weird. It's like a Velcro. But they're great to juice. They are great to make an herbal vinegar with, and or pesto, because that fuzziness kind of breaks down once it's all in the food processor or blender. And both chickweed and cleavers come up in the spring, and they're another one of these spring greens that help clear out the old, clear out anything stuck. especially after any time of like stagnancy, whether that's like recovering from an illness or being cooped up all winter, getting things moving. One word for how the body gets things moving, or in one herbalist term is lymphatic. So it helps move the lymph throughout the body and out of the body. I use them Chickweed and Cleavers I use pretty similarly to each other. They both have affinity for mucous membranes. They both have affinity for the urinary tract and the lymphatic system. Chickweed is also utilized for the GI tract as well, especially if there's like leaky gut or or if there's like tiredness or headaches after eating, that could be an indication of some stagnation in the body, and chickweed would be great for that. Chickweed is also indicated for earaches as well, and cleavers, cleavers think kidneys, urinary tract, and just generally lymph moving in the body. Like the cleavers juice is really great to chug when you have like stuck lymph nodes, like maybe when you're just getting sick or just getting over a sickness. That's when I would use cleavers. I also combine cleavers and yellow dock together as a syrup, or a juice, or like add cleavers juice and yellow dock syrup together in the spring, just to kind of like promote health and wellness and everything moving out of my body. But yeah, Sasha, I want to look up that question about wax myrtle. So
yeah, sure. You look up wax myrtle. I do agree. Like I do find, like, for my own personal experience, I do find that chickweed, I do have like GI issues, and I do find if it does seem to be more helpful for my GI issues than cleavers. Though cleavers, like, like Jenna was saying, like after you've been sick and you just got that weird feeling kind of in your lymph nodes, or that feeling of like when you get sick and you feel like everything's kind of puffy in a weird way, cleavers is your homie for that. Also, I was this many years old when I realized that cleavers root is a red dye. I found out that today. It's a madder dye, which is very exciting. And also those little seeds are caffeinated. It is the world's biggest pain to try to harvest just those seeds if you want to grind them into a coffee substitute, but I am a nerd and have definitely done it. It's, I don't know, maybe as strong as like a strong green tea, but they're very prolific when they grow. So if you get a bunch of seeded cleavers, let them dry out and throw it in your coffee grinder and make some coffee out of it. I found the taste pleasant, but it was a lot of work. So our next homie, did you find it, or do you want me to go to the next one first about the wax myrtle?
Yeah, I just wanted to note that there are no listed contraindications for chest feeding with the bayberry. Yeah.
And so one of my favorite plants, it is one of the showstoppers of the Southeast, is our friend Maypop. She's such a beauty, right? And I have such a struggle with Maypop. I cannot grow Maypop at my house. Like the bugs just eat her up before I can get her to establish. And my neighbor grows the vine very well, but I realized I think it's because they're using pesticides and I'm not. So that's, maybe I don't get my own beautiful maypop vine, but she is a showstopper.
Yeah, maypop, I have trouble growing them too. Maypop and there's a species of caterpillar or butterfly called the Gulf fritillary butterfly, whose larva has co-evolved with maypop, and those caterpillars will eat a whole vine down in a matter of days. It is their only food source. So it is, you know, it's just a balance of like, I love maypop for medicine. I work with them almost every day. Especially they have an affinity for the nerves and the musculoskeletal system. So a lot of tension, they ease tension in the nerves and the nervous system, and in the body. And so, yeah, I use them all the time. And so I would prefer to grow them. But I can't keep up with the Gulf fritillary caterpillars, and really it's their food. So, yeah, usually I will pick the caterpillars off in the spring when they're flowering, just to deter them a little bit, to give the vine time to get robust. But then they'll come back around in the fall and I just let them have it. But I love how, like, I always say that maypop is like the queerest flower in the Gulf South. Because look at them, they are showy and flamboyant and weird, and the fruit is delicious. These fruit here, they take a while to ripen, and basically when they fall off the vine and they're squishy, they are ripe. And the pulp inside are in these little sacks that look like alien babies, or what I imagine in my head alien babies look like. They're such a weird fruit to eat, but they're so delicious. And again, maypop, okay, so Western settler herbalism will tell you any aerial parts, so any above ground parts can be used for medicine. I use the root. It's what am I trying to say? Homa Nation folks here use the root and have been for thousands of years, and so I feel like I'm gonna trust my Homa homies, and trust that wisdom. Most people will only use the vining part and the leaves and the flowers to make medicine. That can be made into a tea or a tincture. Maypop has a lot of minerals in it, and the salty flavor, and so they can also be made into a vinegar as well. I mostly work with them as a tea or a tincture and alcohol extract. And again, they are very particularly indicated for the type of like anxiety that might come with heart palpitations or insomnia, or like circular thinking where you can't get to sleep because you can't shut your brain off. Maypop is a friend that kind of can disrupt that a little bit so you can get some rest and relax. And they're also great for tension in the body. And so sometimes menstrual cramps, if the menstrual cramps are being caused by muscular tension, can be relieved from maypop as well.
You have a hand up real quick from Dee Dee. Hi.
Oh, and maypop is also hypotensive, which means it lowers blood pressure, especially if there is some, especially if it's stress related, because it works to calm the nerves. And any herb friends that are hypotensive. If you are on prescription medication for hypertension, you always want to use caution, or not use them at all. It depends. Yeah, and also talk with an herbalist about it to see if that plant friend is right for you.
I love my plant.
And I'm just doing a time check. We have 15 minutes.
I think there might be a little bit of like galloping, but I think we're going to be all right. And I think we're going to make it. I used both of these pictures of yarrow because white yarrow is like the one, like white yarrow is sort of like the native regional yarrow, and also there are lots of other yarrows, and some of the colored yarrows are also native to Turtle Island, if not the Gulf South. But both of these beautiful flowering plants are the same family. Like they're both yarrows, just one is a different color.
Yarrow is great. The pollinators love yarrow, and they are just really lovely blooms that dry really well. Yarrow is one that I will use in smoke medicine as well. Some of their energetic energetic properties that aren't necessarily for like it's medicine, but not for maybe the physical body, is that yarrow is traditionally used to help us hold our boundaries, like healthy boundaries we really need. So having yarrow on us or burning yarrow around us can help hold those boundaries. And kind of energetically, emotionally, yarrow is this friend I turn to for heartache. When we need to like hold a boundary with a loved one, and it's especially hard to do, yarrow is a really great friend to have on hand when we just need to hold that boundary. And the heartache part, because sometimes we can get like kind of leaky, emotionally leaky in our heartache. So yarrow holding that boundary helps us to begin our own healing process with and create a clear boundary with interpersonally. And internally, yarrow has a real beautiful relationship with the blood. So yarrow is used in first aid medicine as a hemostatic and a styptic, which means it can stop bleeding. But yarrow is multifaceted and can work with the blood if blood needs to flow. And I'm thinking about particularly like yarrow. Yarrow is used traditionally for heavy menstrual bleeding, but then it's also used traditionally if menstrual bleeding is like scant and really light, and we don't want it to be. So there's the mysterious conundrum of yarrow, and the best way to describe how it can do both is that it just has an intelligence for the blood. That's where the affinity is.
Yeah, I love this plant. That idea of like, like old stories of people packing their wounds with yarrow, it being really antiseptic. That idea of it like being able to stop the bleeding, it can stop your heart from bleeding out too. I love them. And Echinacea.
We have a question.
Oh, did we? I didn't see it.
Will this be recorded? And is there maybe a list of the plant medicines you are providing, sharing slides? Thank you.
Yeah, this is definitely recorded, and there's talk about making like a sort of like informational slide booklet after the fact. So,
and another comment. I am loving this presentation so much. I'm so hungry for the worldview that emanates from the respect and honor you are showing to this knowledge. I have a question. The name Bvlbvncha is new to me. Is Bvlbvncha different from Bvlbvncha, the different spellings, or the same word, different spelling? So Bvlbvncha, it comes from the Chata language, and it's generally translated as like the place of many languages or foreign languages. I have recently come across a translation from a Chata elder that says that it's the place of babbling tongues, and I really like that translation because it reminds me of like the babbling and gurgling and chatter of like river water, right? And so we're situated right in the Mississippi Delta, and all of the rivers, many of the rivers flow into the Mississippi and down into the Gulf of Mexico. So just this idea of this land sitting next to this river, and all of the babbling languages that have and continue to convene here is like my favorite image ever. And then also the spellings, they're all are correct. BVL is the V represents the sound that's more traditional to a number of Southeastern languages, but the U is fine, and you might also see it spelled with an A, Bvlbvncha. All are correct because all of them are translations of indigenous language using an English alphabet. So, yeah. And Echinacea. Sasha, if I'm talking too much, you can tell me to simmer down.
I love it. Please.
Okay. All right.
It's a joy to watch you geek out.
Yeah, this is like my neurodivergent hyperfixation passion is talking about plants. So Echinacea are beautiful plant friends that are native to Turtle Island. They go really great in like a planned landscape and flower beds. They're also a great one for like prairie restoration. And these seed heads in the center will stick around for a while, and you can kind of, once they're really dry, you can break them up and disperse the seed. The medicine, it depends on which Echinacea you're working with. Traditionally, the one used is Echinacea augustifolia, but that one is pretty over harvested, and you use the roots for it, and so you have to dig up the whole plant to use the medicine. And so people are moving towards Echinacea purpurea, which the medicine is the strongest in the flower heads, and that's just a much more sustainable practice. I also want to let you know that I parent a trickster 8-year-old who is making a cameo right now. Yeah. And and so lots of people know about Echinacea. It has been in every health food store and major tea for the immune system for decades. I actually think Echinacea is very magical, but often overused or used when other plant friends would do just fine. Echinacea is an immune stimulant. So again, it's going to help our bodies mount an immune response. It also has antiseptic qualities, and it's great topically for superficial wound care, bug bites. Like an Echinacea salve is great when you have a cut or a scratch that you're trying to heal, because in addition to stimulating immune response, they also help with cleaning up our like white blood cells and helper cells that attack foreign pathogens. And so they're really good for they're really good to mount an immune response, and they're really great for cleanup afterwards. And they're another one of those that's also a lymphatic, and so they help move lymph through the body. And thinking of our lymph nodes, like in our necks, our groin, under our armpits, those are areas where waste leaves the body as well. And so moving the lymph is really important to overall health. And Echinacea can help us get there. A lot of what I see is a lot of folks maybe using Echinacea too long when they're not needed anymore. So we want to take them acutely for a very short amount of time when we first feel the signs of sickness, just to give our immune system a boost. And then we want to dip back and start using other plant friends after that. And then we want to use them during recovery for a short amount of time, just to help clean waste out of the body. And then we can use them topically all the time. They're great. Traditionally, they're used for like snake bites, any cuts and scrapes, but also like necrotic skin. But if you have necrotic skin, I want you to go to a doctor and or work with an experienced herbalist. And so, yes, these are some of the indications, but I don't want any of you listening to be dealing with necrotic skin on your own. Yeah. And what else can I say about Echinacea? Oh, they just have an intelligence for the fluids in the body, especially lymph fluid. And that's the way that they're helpful. They're also, I don't know if I mentioned this, they're great for pollinators, and they're perennial. So they're gonna, once a clump is established, they're gonna keep coming back and giving you that love every year.
I love them. Thank you, Mado. And so the next homies are coming up are like friends you can find in Bvlbvncha and throughout the Gulf South most of the year. Our first friend is Yopon or Yopon holly, who is a very super special plant to the peoples of the Southeast.
Yeah, they're sacred. These are one of our sacred medicines here in the Southeast. Archaeological records have found ashi, that in Muskogee you call Yopon ashi. I don't like the pronunciation Yopon, even though that is the most common pronunciation. That word comes from the Catawba languages, one of my ancestral languages, and we pronounce it Yapa, so there's no yo sound in there. So I'm just going to refer to it as ashi here. But folks in the Gulf South traded ashi long distances. There's archaeological evidence of like traces of ashi in vessels found in Cahokia, outside of what is currently known as St. Louis. This plant traveled because it was so sacred, used in many of our ceremonies. And also it's caffeinated. It is caffeinated. So this is Southeastern coffee pretty much, but with the added benefit of a lot of antioxidants and minerals. Their flavor profile is kind of like yerba mate. And again, lots of antioxidants. And so like think green tea, yerba mate, and the health benefits of those. You don't want to eat, the berries are very showy in the winter time. You don't want to eat them though. It's not a good idea to eat the berries. But the leaves is what we harvest. And then we dry them and crush them and roast them to bring out some of the sugars and some of the flavors and the caffeine from the plant. And they are prolific growers. Where they grow, it is prolifically. I'm trying to think of what else. to talk about them, only that they are beloved. And some of their translations from Southeastern Indigenous languages, the actual translation means beloved or beloved one, because that's how sacred they are to our people.
Yeah, I feel like they get a bad name sometimes, and they've been given like, you know, bad names and like scientifically, or you know, like that they are purgative, like extreme purgatives, and that they're they get this like ugly light in like the scientific lens. But they're deeply beloved and sacred to us, and they're delicious and nutritive and prolific and beautiful. Like think about the winter time. And not not all of our ancestors lived in like the deep Gulf where it's like warm most of the year. There were places where this plant grew that would get very cold and gray and dark, and this bright flash of red, you know, would bring you know, warmth and love at a time when it's gray. Like this plant is much beloved. Hi, River. Do you want to say hi?
I'm not muted anymore.
So she can hear you?
Everyone can hear you. All the participants. There's a kitchen towel under the sink in the basket.
Yeah, I don't see it.
Oh, well, can you go look again, please?
And so we have one last plant, and it is the plant for which Bvlbvncha Collective is the absolute official spokesperson and fan club for, and it is Biden's Pelosa and Alba. We love her. And I've been very excited to see, like when I was looking at pictures, I saw a bunch of websites with like foraging recipes, which you would not have found like 4 years ago. So I'm very excited that she's having a moment.
And I just want to also, we are over time now, but we're gonna talk about our beloved plant friend for those who can stay. Did folks see that in the chat? Because Sasha made a announcement about it a little while ago, that we were going to go over, but I'm not sure if I saw it in the chat. I don't know if anyone else did, but anyway, Biden's. Okay, so Biden's grows here all year round. They are non-native to here. They can get kind of thick, and
aren't they?
And kind of take over in a garden bed. However, go ahead, Sasha. I'm sorry.
They're from Central America, right? They're from a little further south than us. Right? Yeah.
There's multiple species of Bidens as well, and they all have similar medicinal properties. So they can get real thick. They're prolific seeders. These seeds right in the seed heads, they'll stick to you and they'll travel with you, and then they'll drop to the ground, or you'll pick them off of you, and guaranteed a new plant will sprout up. Like I really admire them for that tenacity towards life. But in a garden bed, they can be a little bit of a nuisance. However, I actually encourage them in my raised garden beds, because I'll weed them out and make medicine with them. Biden's also another way in which they are amazing. Oh, they are also especially in like the cold season, they are the most reliable food source for pollinators here. And so we just got to respect that not everything is for us. And even if they are a little bit of a nuisance, our pollinators are getting fed, especially in colder times when there's maybe not a lot of other food for them. But you can easily weed them out of the garden and make medicine with them. And also this is the reason I encourage them in my raised beds, is because Bidens will pull up toxins from the soil and store them in their leaves. Not all plants do that. Bvlbvncha is one of them. So they are a great solution for phytoremediation or bioremediation. But it also means that if you're harvesting them for food or medicine, you wanna know where you're harvesting from, and what the soil's like and what the soil contains. They will also pull up heavy metals into their tissues, and so I tend to only harvest from my own raised garden beds because I know that soil. Yeah. I don't have as much practice with this, so Sasha, you'll have to talk about it. But the leaves can be used as a cooking green.
So some of the folk names are what I'm trying to remember some of them, but like blackjack, there's a couple of other names. So if you're looking for recipes, as if you live in a place where Bvlbvncha is prolific, it's, you know, maybe your whole backyard is covered in it. You're like, well, maybe I want to forage and eat it. If you're looking for recipes, you can often find recipes under the name of blackjack. That's one of its like folk names. It's a great pot herb, not so great raw. So think like make palak paneer, make stew, throw it in your cooking greens. It's not disgusting raw, but you don't really want to put our Biden's friend in the salad. It's kind of, there's a strange texture, and I think that texture is also like contributes to its medicine. Like there's like a weird, it's not exactly thickly mucilaginous, but you can tell it's there, and I'm wondering if that's part of the reason why it's so good for your gut.
Also has anti-inflammatory properties, some serious anti-inflammatory properties, and so that could also be working on the gut too. The whole, generally the aerial parts of the plant is what you would use for medicine. They don't dry. You can dry Bidens for tea. I like to work with them fresh, and they grow so prolifically that you can sustainably harvest a lot for like juicing, or for making tincture or vinegar. And I will use a little root, not a ton of root, but a little root when I'm making medicine with them. They are another one that is astringent. They have affinity for the mucous membrane, so they're another great one for sinus issues, seasonal allergies, hay fever. They also have an affinity for the urinary tract system. So they're another one that I would go to for UTIs or any sort of like hot, irritated situation involving the urinary tract. I know that Sasha speaks their praises about gut healing. That's not usually how I've used them, so I would definitely want to hear from you about your experiences with that.
Yeah, I do feel I don't think it's like the first thing people think of when they think of Biden's for like the stomach and like the gut. But for me, I've found that I was concerned about using Biden's in this way because Biden's can be so strongly antimicrobial depending on how you prepare it, like what kind of preparation. And I was like, well, I don't want to bomb my gut out if I'm trying to balance. And another local herbalist friend of ours had mentioned that they're actually a great tissue tonic. And then I thought of that and I thought of using it for the gut. And I'm wondering if it is actually its antimicrobial, not antimicrobial, sorry, it's anti-inflammatory properties. But I have found that like it can create calming when there is like hot, angry gut issues for me. I've found that it seems to assist with that in like oxymel vinegar or eating it in like eating it as greens, not so much as like the tincture form of using Bidens. And also we've heard from other members of the collective of using Biden's tincture for like strong, like for wound care for MRSA.
Yeah, that is one of its indications is for, because is Biden's is another weird mystery plant. Generally, there are not really any systemic antibiotics in the herbal world. That is a function of pharmaceutical medication, that we have systemic antibiotics. And what I mean about that is like you can orally take something and it will travel to the site of infection and start start aiding there. Plants don't really work that way. Plants have affinities for different organs and different areas of the body, and they'll work there. Bidens may be the exception, and we don't know why, but it seems to at high doses, it seems to have a systemic antibiotic effect on the body. And so it is particularly indicated for things like antibiotic resistant bacterial infections, because it mysteriously works like an antibiotic. Now you have to, the cautionary thing here is that it's high dose and frequently, like think a high dose every 2 hours when you have acute infection. But I personally used it that way and have heard from teachers and colleagues galore that they have had luck taking it internally as well as externally treating a wound with the Bidens. Now, if you're using a tincture for that, you would want to use a tincture and then you would want to water that down. You don't want to put strong alcohol directly on an infected wound. You would want to water that down a little bit, unless it's an emergency situation. But yeah, so that Bidens is so useful for so many reasons, but especially as for its antimicrobial properties and its anti-inflammatory properties, and it's super weedy, super sustainable. You're probably, if you want to harvest some Bidens out of someone's yard, you're probably doing them a favor. They can be used as food. Pollinators love them. So, you know, generally we like planting and we promote like native plants that are native to Turtle Island and to this region. But we have some non-native friends who have naturalized here that are just so beneficial both for the non-human nations and for our bodies as well. And so we welcome them with a little management.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's something really interesting about Bidens. Bidens loves Bidens will grow in almost any terrain here in Bvlbvncha. It will grow in disturbed territory. It will grow in like a ditch. It will grow in a coulee. It will grow all kinds of places. But there's a wonderful farm here, Speakeasy Farms, which is an urban farm collective here in Bvlbvncha. And I had spoken with them about like, I have a lot of Bidens in my yard and I love them, but it's Bidens completely taking over the yard some parts of the year. And she had told me that like, well, Bidens will grow in like in soil that needs remediation and in soil that needs a lot of love. And so like the way to combat that is to like to grow other things that like fix nitrogen, and there's all these steps to like try to maybe convince Bidens to like grow somewhere else. but there's when she had told me that there's a poetry to this plant that gives so much and will grow in any terrain. It's like, I will grow in the places that have been neglected, and I will like give you medicine and food all year here too. Like Biden's grows pretty much all year here in Bvlbvncha. So I feel like it's less of a clarion call now, because I feel like when we first started talking about Biden's, no one cared about them. And so it was a very much like, y'all need to care about Biden's. She's getting more attention now, so that's good. But I still feel very strongly about Biden's. I love them. And so those are all of our plant friends, and we did not go over as much as I suspected. This is our info. Thank y'all for having patience with me and Grace in the beginning and following us on this fun journey. And these are all the way, this probably isn't all the ways. We have a lot of community, so there are lots of ways to contact us. But here you see that we've got bvlbvancharadio.net. So please listen into Bvlbvancha public radio. Bvlbvancha Collective on Instagram, Bvlbvancha on Twitter. We've got a Gmail here. Please reach out to us if you have any questions or want to possibly talk about us on plans when y'all come to the convergence, because I hope some of you do. And we have the Bvlbvancha Collective website as well.
I also want to give a shout out to the Bvlbvancha Radio. That's Bvlbvancha Liberation Radio, which is a community powered radio station here in Bvlbvancha.
It's not the right website. I'm sorry.
No, it is the right website.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just didn't give it a shout out before,
Okay.
and I would like to.
Okay.
And you can, so we are live locally from 4 to 8 p.m. Central on Tuesdays, but you can also stream it live from the website. And it's Indigenous centered news and views, and then Indigenous music from all over Turtle Island. And we also do plant talks there. We do plant and medicine talks there. And we are we also do like words of the week in Southeastern Indigenous languages. And that varies from between 3 to 6 different Southeastern languages a week. So definitely tune in for that language laboratory segment as well. And yeah, Mado, Wado, Biwa for being with us. I want to make sure I'm paying attention to the question area. And if anyone has any last minute questions, fire away.
Yes. I appreciate all y'all for coming. This was a great way to spend the evening. And please, if anybody, if some question like arrests you in the night about one of these plants, please feel free to reach out to our email. We are happy to nerd out about plants forever. If you ask us a question, you will get more info than you actually wanted, probably.
It's true. It's true. It's like, and now I will read my treatise on the entire ethnobotanical history of this plant. Yeah.
So I'm going to stop the share here. And yeah, I guess if there's nothing else, I appreciate you and Mado so much for doing this with me, Jenna. This was such a joy and a pleasure.
Yeah, I would love to spend most Wednesday evenings chatting about plants with an online or in-person community. Yeah. All right. I don't think any other questions are coming through. So, all right. Have a wonderful night, and hope to see y'all in Bvlbvancha for this convergence in spring of 2023.
Bye, y'all.